Hello and welcome to episode 71 of The Thing About Golf, Golf Australia magazine's dogged pursuit of the answer to that seemingly simple question, why golf? Well, as he does every 2 weeks, John Huggan joins me on the digital blower now from the other side of the world to see if we can't add another piece to the puzzle that is the answer to our question, this time with one of the game's most decorated players. Huggy, welcome. It's your turn to reveal to the listeners who we'll be hearing from today. So tell us who you've been chatting with.
Well, I'm very pleased to say that we managed to get a hold of Maria Olazabal, two-time Masters champion and umptime Ryder Cup player and captain and multi-tournament winner. We got him just after he received his honorary degree from the University of St Andrews. He and I sat down in the University House, which is the home of the principal of the university, just up the road from the old course, a couple of days before the start of the Open Championship last week. Everything
about what you've laid out there, Huggy, is making me green with every element of that is fantastic. So and because it's been Open Week, I haven't had a chance to listen to the whole thing. I assume that means we're going to hear a good interview, but we'll come to that in a moment. When did you first encounter Jose? You've been covering the game for a while. He was at the peak of the game 20 or 30 years ago, I suppose. When did you first encounter him?
Well, I first saw him in the flesh at the 1984 Amateur Championship, in which I can say that I was briefly a fellow competitor. Right. He went on to win. I failed to qualify for the match play by a shot. Funnily enough, he didn't remember that. I can't imagine why. But at Formby, he went on to win that week, beat Colin Montgomery in the final, famously. And as I recall, every time I looked up and watched him, he was holding a putt. He was an incredible putter at the age of 17.
He was Cameron Smith before Cameron Smith was Cameron Smith in that way. Did he stand out at that point, Huggy? As a player, I suppose you look at other players differently, but did you look at him and think he's different at that time?
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty obvious. He'd already won the boys' championship. He won the amateur that week. He would win the youths' championship the following year, and he won the silver medal at the Open as well. The only R&A run event that he hasn't won is the Open, in which he was once third. But as I said to him, there's still time for that, but he just laughed at that point. I think, to be fair, I think his days of winning the Open are gone.
Yeah, maybe. He, of course, Huggy, not through any fault of his own, everybody who was around Seve lived somewhat in Seve's shadow. And I think that's particularly true of Olazabal. Take Seve out of the game, his career would stand as amazing. But it's not something that he's in any way bitter about or disappointed about, is he? He is the biggest of all the Seve fans. Genuinely love the man.
Oh, I mean, absolutely. I mean, there would be not even a hint of jealousy in anything that Jose Maria says about Seve. Not to give too much away, but I did ask them if he gave Seve 10 out of 10 for short game, what would Jose Maria's rating be? And he said, I think he said 6 or 8. I think he said 8. I would have given him 9.5.
It's 99.75.
He was being unduly modest, I think, because the pair of them were incredible. I mean, can you imagine what it must have been like playing against those two in the Ryder Cup with those short games? I mean, it would just hack you off so much. I mean, they'd get up and down from everywhere.
Not just the short games, Seve's attitude, the niggling, and Seve's personality was somewhat confrontational, but with a smile on his face. No wonder he drove Azinger mad. Two more obvious and dogged opponents that have never been born apart than those two. They were made for each other. Is he a deep thinker about the game, Jose?
Yes. Once you get him, I've actually asked him for interviews and chats over the years, and sometimes he says no, which is absolutely fine. I've never had a problem with people saying no if they don't want to do something. But he's the sort of guy where if he commits to something, he absolutely does it 100%. I mean, he thinks about the answers, and just this interview we're talking about. I mean, he had a packed day. I mean, he was at rehearsal for the ceremony in the morning. He did the ceremony in the Younger Hall, where famously Bobby Jones made his speech back in 1958. He had to go to some garden party thing after that. Then he had to sit down with me. Then he had a dinner at night. So he did it all. We fitted me in between all of that, and he was terrific. as I say, once he says yes to something, he really means yes.
He does it. Surprisingly, Huggy, the interview he did with you was probably the most interesting of all of those things that he attended that day. I can't imagine. That would be a horrible way to live, wouldn't it?
Hang on a minute. Yeah, my wife's going to listen to this because my wife works for the University of St Andrews, and she actually stood up at the ceremony and made the speech to introduce him.
Oh, wow.
Before he made his own speech up on the stage there, yes. So, and a very good job she did as well.
I was about to say, no doubt she did a bang-up job and didn't ask you to write it for her. Comes a point in a player's career, a player like Olazabal, where I think they probably enjoy the reflection. Did you get that sense that he was enjoying the reflection and the opportunity to go back over things with you?
Yeah, I think that there's a sense of that with him, in that I think when you're in the midst of doing whatever you're doing, you don't spend a lot of time reflecting on exactly what's going on. But afterwards, yeah, I think he's without being arrogant in any way. I mean, far from it. He's aware of how much he's achieved and where he's come from. I mean, he comes from a very humble background. His dad was the greenkeeper. His grandfather was the greenkeeper. His mum worked at the golf club. He was born the day after the golf course opened that he played on as a kid. So he literally lived on the golf course as a child.
It's a fabulous story. We should turn it over to Jose to tell it himself. Been fabulous to have you introduce it, Huggy. And I, like the rest of the listeners, am champing at the bit to have a listen again. Haven't had the opportunity because it's open week, but it's on my list of things to do in the near future. Thanks for joining us today.
My pleasure.
My guest today is certainly one of my favourite players and one of my favourite people in golf, Jose Maria Olazabal, all the way from Spain. We're actually here in St Andrews, where he's just been awarded an honorary degree from the University of St Andrews. So we're expecting some very intelligent answers today on the podcast. But as I say, I always start with the same question. What is the thing about golf for you, Jose?
Well, I don't think it's just one thing. I think it's a bunch of things. Obviously, the uncertainty of it, the challenge that it represents every time you tee off. It doesn't matter how good you're hitting the ball, you might be there for a surprise. And then a lot of things. I mean, it's a sport that you can play with players of different levels. Yeah. You can play with family members. You can play with your granddad, with your grandson. I mean, you can play 9 holes and have a lot of fun. You are in close contact with nature. You see a lot of things, birds, animals, rabbits, deers.
You're painting a good picture.
Well, I mean, that's the good positive part of it. Obviously, the game
drives you crazy.
Correct. That is true. I mean, it's very frustrating. We all know about that. And it's a combination of all those things together that I think makes the game of golf so interesting and so appealing.
I mean, this is a bit of a cliche when it comes to you. I mean, it's been said many times that people say they're born to play golf, but you really were. I mean, tell us the story that the golf course you grew up on was opened the day before you were born, literally.
Yes, correct. I mean, my parents lived in the farm, but they didn't own the farm. The farm was owned by the landlord, and they decided to build a golf course. And the only condition was that the families that worked the land would have a job when the golf course was built. So, funny enough, my mom put the flag on the first 9 holes, February 4th, 1966, and I was born the following day. So my house actually was surrounded by golf holes. I had the first tee, the 9th green, the putting green, and the 10th tee surrounding my house in less than 40 yards.
Yeah, so it was your playground then?
Yes, correct. And luckily enough, in those days, I have to say that golf was played by wealthy people in Spain, but they played at the weekends. So from Monday to Friday, virtually the golf course was empty, and I had a lot of fun playing on my own. Yeah,
so there was no real golf culture even in your family or even in the area, was there?
No, nobody. Actually, when I started playing golf, I grip the club left-handed, even though I hit the ball right-handed.
Oh, with left below right.
Correct.
Everybody does that.
Correct. Yeah, so that's how I started. Nobody told me how to grip the club. And when I was 7 years old, obviously we had teachers at the club, and they were the ones that told me that I should grip the other way around. So it was a difficult time because whenever they were whenever they were turning their back on me, I went back to the comfortable zone.
When did it become apparent, not just to you, that there was some talent there? I mean, you go beyond. You start with the enthusiasm, don't you? And then you suddenly think, I'm beating other people, sort of thing.
Well, I would say maybe when I was 15, 16.
Right.
I would
as
say.
late as that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, before that, I didn't play all that many events. Whenever I played, it was just for fun. I had a great time. But then once I turned 14, I had some good results, and I got into the boys' team. And that's how I started to compete against international players. And when I was, 15, 16, I started to play international events, and the scoring and the results were pretty good, I have to say. And
you mean you excelled at every level?
Yes,
as an amateur on the way.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. That is true. And when I was 17, 18, it was the first time I had in mind that, why not try to turn professional one day and play golf as a living, because I love the game, and the scorings and the results were good. I thought, well, maybe, I have a chance of doing well.
I can confirm that. I mean, my first memory of you was the amateur at Formby.
All right.
I'm sure you remember I didn't qualify by a shot. I'm sure that stuck with your memory. But I remember watching you play a fair bit that week, and man, you hold every putt you looked at. I mean, it was incredible.
Yeah. Well, I have to say that the first match I almost lost. I was, if I remember properly, I was 2 down, I think, and 3 to play, and went into a playoff and won that match. And from then on, it's true that everything, clicked, and I started playing really well. And as you said, I hold putts from everywhere, chips
every
and
time
everything.
I looked up, you were holding a putt.
Yeah, that's true. Yes, I remember playing with Monty, the final, and I did all kind of things to him. I apologize now, but
because he was very good.
Yeah, he played really well that day, but I chipped in twice. I think I hold putts from everywhere. And on top of that, I don't remember if it was the 12th hole, par 4, with a big mount behind the green, and we couldn't see the flag, and he hit a second shot really good, and the crowds went crazy. I mean, I knew that the ball was really, really close to the hole, but we couldn't see the surface of the green, so I went after him. And I hit my second shot, and the crowds went also, really wild. And I thought, okay, well, that must be close too. So by the time we got to the green, there was only one ball that you could see on the green, and mine was in the hole. So,
yeah. Have you talked to him much about that game since?
Yeah, well, he always reminds me of that day. Whenever he has the chance, he says, that day you did all kind of tricks.
Yeah. But that was just a prelude to. I mean, the thing that stood out that week was your putting, but your short game is the thing that if people say, what's the first thing you think of with you other than winning 2 Masters, it's the short game. I mean, how did that develop, and where does that come from?
It developed by need. I have to say, I was when I was a little boy, I was a skinny kid, not tall, couldn't hit the ball far. Everybody hit it farther than me. So I struggled at times to get par 4s in 2. And, it was just a sheer need. I needed to score low. And in most of the times, as I said, I couldn't reach the par 4s in 2. So I was forced to chip and putt well to be able to compete against the kids of my age.
On the other end of the scale, your driving has never, you're laughing already, has never lived up to your short game, shall we say. I mean, I've got this memory of watching you on the range at Wentworth with John Jacobs teaching you or giving you a lesson, and you put the ball on the tee in the ground and look at him, and he would walk forward and make the tee higher. and tee the ball higher, and you would look at him, and you'd want to tee it. You would tee it, and then you would hit the shot off the high tee, but then you would then tee it lower for the next one, and he would walk forward and tee it higher again. And you were so stubborn about it.
Well, I was stubborn in the sense that, I wanted to hit a shot that give me the best chance to hit fairways. So I was just surviving. Period.
Yeah.
As simple
so
as
you were
that.
thinking more, get the ball in play.
Get the ball in play.
Even if you have to neck it out.
Correct.
Yeah.
Because after that, I knew the rest of the game was, was okay. I don't play, and short game was good. So if I could manage to hit the ball onto the fairway, that was a great start for me.
Before we move on from the amateur stuff, I mean, you won the boys, the youths, the amateur, and the silver medal at the Open. Obviously, the only R&A event that you didn't win is the Open.
The Open
so far at least. But run me through that. I mean, that you must have been thinking to yourself, if there was any doubt about turning professional, that was dispelled, I'm sure, by that stage.
By that time, I had it clear in my mind that I was going to give it a try as a professional, for sure. That was when I was 18. Yes, especially because of those results. And playing international events, playing with players from all over Europe, I managed to do well. So I decided then that it would be silly of me at least not to try. So I talked to my parents, and they were reluctant, I have to say.
Really?
Yes. Yeah. Well, I mean,
they didn't understand golf. Is that
correct?
Yeah.
I mean, correct. My father, greenkeeper. My mom used to work at the clubhouse. They didn't envision myself earning a living playing golf, because they didn't think correct. They didn't think that would be possible. So we got to an agreement. They said to me, okay, you finish your studies. Once you finish your studies, you just give it a try. You give it a try for 2 or 3 years, and then we will see. And that's what happened. Yeah, I turned professional in '85 when I was 19. I went to the school at La Manga. I earned my card for the following season at the European Tour in those days, and that's where everything started.
Yeah, I remember you mentioned '85. I remember, I think you've told me this story before of your epic journey to Royal Dornoch.
Oh my God!
To defend your amateur, but you hadn't touched a club for about 3 weeks because of exams or something. Yeah,
correct. That's the story. Yes, I had to do some exams, and they were the last chance for me to pass. So I had to make those. So I studied for 3 weeks, didn't touch a club, and then to go to Royal Dornoch, it felt like one of the longest trips in my whole life.
Well, run me through it. I remember you said you were sort of standing there in the middle of the night waiting for a bus or something.
Correct. So we landed in London, and then obviously I was traveling with the Spanish Federation. So they organized a train from London all the way
to Inverness.
Yep. Correct. So I jumped in the train. My English was quite poor in those days. So I asked somebody if that was the right train, and they said yes. But obviously, jumped in the train. The train took off, and, 2 hours passed, 4 hours passed, 5 hours passed, and I'm thinking,
where am I?
Really, where am I going? Is it that far? So I kept on asking people, and they kept on saying, yeah, you're okay, you're okay.
Yeah.
But it got to a point where virtually there was nobody on that train.
Right. Yeah.
So finally, we got to Inverness, and I dropped. It was a tiny little station, and I got off the train, and I said, well, I didn't have a phone or anything to call a taxi or whatever. I asked the train guy, if there was any transportation, and he said, yes, don't you worry. A bus will come by, and it will take you to to Toronto. All right, fine. So I waited. I waited for another 45 minutes, an hour, and I'm thinking, well, this cannot be
What
right.
time of day is this by now?
It was like 12:30 at night.
Right.
Yeah, and but it's still light.
Right.
I have to say.
In June, of course.
Correct.
Yeah.
Still light. So finally, a bus arrived, took me to the golf club, and amazingly, there was a lady there that actually took care of me and said, yes, we were waiting for you, and you have to go to this place, and everything is arranged. And that was my trip, and I shot...
Maybe you got blown away in the weather.
Correct. Oh, I shot 86 the first day.
I remember that. Yeah.
68 the second day.
Yeah,
to miss the cut by one.
Yeah. It was quite a wind. I got the right half of the draw that week. I was off early.
All right, okay.
We were round before it. I'm sitting in the clubhouse going, come on.
Oh, Heather.
Gorse.
The Gorse.
Yeah.
I mean, that was brutal on that golf course. My goodness.
Yeah.
I mean, it was either fairway or lost ball.
Yes.
And I lost a few that day.
Well, didn't we all? Was that your last time there? Have you been back to Dono?
I haven't been back.
No, you should. It's a wonderful golf course. But anyway, you've turned pro. At what point did your English kick in? I mean, your English is obviously very good, and I know your Spanish. You speak Italian as well, I believe.
Well, Italian and Spanish,
you can get by. Yeah,
quite similar.
Yeah.
Well, English. I mean, I think it's just because we travel around the world. English is the language that.
No formal lessons. You just picked.
No. Well, I mean, I had some lessons when I was at school.
Right.
Obviously, for a couple of years or so, but it was more, grammatical. How to write and all that.
Yeah.
Not so much listening and understanding. And I took some private lessons. And funny enough, the teacher was. He wasn't concerned about me learning how to write properly. He said, okay, you're going to travel around the world. Let's see if we can...
Well, verbal was
correct.
Yeah.
So let's see if we can manage to understand what somebody's telling you.
Yeah.
So what he did was he used to put music, tapes. And then he would run the tape back and forth until I correct.
Yeah.
So that's how I improve my English.
Yeah.
And obviously, using it when traveling around the world.
Did the wonderful Sergio Gomez, who's sadly no longer with us, wonderful man, did he teach you a bit of it? His English was very good as well. I mean. Did you have times where he would make you speak English? Or
No, not really. No, not really. But his English was very good because when he was a teenage boy, his parents actually sent him to Scotland.
He told me that. He spent time in Edinburgh.
Correct.
Yeah.
That was it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's why his English was so good.
Well, I'm not so sure people would agree with that. If you go to Scotland, it's not really the place to learn English, but still, I believe you. Yeah. I mean, you must miss him. I mean, I know I do, and I knew him reasonably well, but yeah, you must, obviously.
I miss him a lot.
Yeah,
he was a character, I have to say. Very stubborn, but he was a character. He was a piece of work.
He did a great job for you.
Yes, I mean, I've always had very clear in my mind that I wanted to play golf, and I didn't want to be bothered by other stuff.
People like me?
No, other stuff, and he took care of that really, really well.
Yeah. You were never tempted then by the IMGs of the world? Or?
Yeah, I was. I was approached a couple of times, and finally I decided not to. I wanted to be my own boss, let's put it that way. That's why I didn't go with IMG.
I've always made sense to me. If I'd been playing at your level, I'd wanted somebody working for me and nobody else.
Well, no, but the thing
I'd
is,
be selfish about it.
No, but in those days, I mean, you have to think that IMG was very strong. He controlled a lot of things, and it was. it was not all that easy.
No,
at the end of the day.
Absolutely.
So,
I'm sure that you would hit a few brick walls
yes,
sometimes.
correct.
Yeah,
yes, we did.
You wouldn't be playing in tournaments that you might have been playing in had your agent been different.
Correct.
Yeah. I know how that works. Yeah, but still, I mean, when you've turned pro, I mean, you barely broke stride. I mean, you started to win almost immediately.
Yes.
Did that surprise you?
Yes, it did.
Yeah.
One thing was winning the school at La Manga, but another completely different thing was, playing the tour, playing against the top players, the Sandy Lyles, the Uzis, the Langers, the Seves, the Aldos, and so on.
Yeah, it was pretty strong at that time.
Yeah, it was very strong at that time, so I was a little surprised, I have to say. But, the first season, I started okay, didn't have all that many chances to win, but as the season progressed, like middle of the season, from the summer on, I was close to winning a couple of times. I failed, and the breakthrough came in Switzerland, Grand Soucier. That's where I won my first event. And everything went quite smooth from then on.
Is there a kind of feeling of relief almost at that point where you say, "Oh, I'm good enough"? If I did your record, I'd be thinking I pretty much was, but you still have to do it.
You still have to break that wall.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, until you don't break that wall, you always have second thoughts, doubts.
Yeah.
Especially if you have an opportunity to close a tournament and you fail, all of a sudden, you start thinking, well, am I good enough or not? So it's very important to break that wall, to win that first tournament, and then have the feet on the ground. So it's not like, you win the first tournament and that's it, Here I am, I prove that I'm able to win and that's it. No, you have to keep on working really, really hard. One thing is to get to the top and one thing is staying on the top. So that is a much difficult equation.
Yeah. How did you take to the travel involved in it? Because you're very much a home bird, I know.
Yes.
You live in a wonderful part of the world, but...
Well, it was tough. I get homesick, as you know. I love my family. But in those days, I have to say that the tour was different. There was a lot of camaraderie. We had, in those days, like 16 to 18, depending on the tournaments, Spanish players on the European
so there's
tour.
Always somebody to have dinner with.
Correct.
Yeah.
So, and on top of that, the philosophy in those days was not like today. We used to go early to the golf course, warm up, play a few holes, have lunch, practice, and we would be done by 5 o'clock in the afternoon, 4:30 or so.
Yeah.
But in those days, nobody went to the gym. Nobody.
No.
So we used to stay in the same hotels or hire houses or wherever and used to play cards. And in that regard, it was not all that unpleasant or difficult to be away from home for, let's say, 4 or 5 weeks.
Yeah. They would pass quite quickly.
Correct.
Yeah. How much an influence did Seve early in your career? I mean, when did you start... Really, I mean, you're always associated with him, but I mean, I can't imagine that he was hanging around you at the beginning. I mean, he would see you as competition as well.
Well, I don't think so, John. No. I'll tell you the story. The story goes that I got a phone call at home when I was 17, and the lady at the other end of the line said, "Well, I'm Seve's secretary, and listen, Seve is organizing an exhibition match in Medinah, and he has thought of you so we can play a match just for charity." And honest to God, I hung the phone down.
You thought it was a joke?
Somebody's just trying to make a joke on me.
Yeah.
So I hung the phone.
Yeah.
So in a couple of days, 2 or 3 days passed away. And the next thing, okay, another phone call. I pick up the phone. And this time it's Seve.
Right. What are you doing?
Hey, listen, this is Seve speaking. And don't hang the phone. Okay. So that was the first time We played together. Actually, we played. It was winter time. It was a terrible day. It rained cats and dogs that day, and we played together. It was packed with people at Pedreña, and that's how the relationship started. When I turned professional, as soon as I turned professional, we played the Spanish professional championship at Pedreña. And we played in the last group, the last day, and he was 2 shots ahead, playing 18. Short
ahead of you.
He was ahead of me, 2 shots, and playing 18. Short par 4.
Yeah.
But the flag was tight on the left corner, short, a very tricky pin position. So I hit my second shot, and I left it pin high right, and he hit his second shot straight over the flag, and he hit it, I don't know, like 12 feet past the hole. Very slicky putt, really fast, difficult. So I went and hold my putt, and he 3-putted. He hit a lovely fast putt, but the green was so fast that he passed. Yeah. He hit the ball.
A bit like Muirfield Village.
Yeah, correct. Like 6 feet past the hole.
Which we'll get to that in a minute. Correct. Yeah.
So I missed the putt, and we played the playoff, and he beat me the playoff. And the prize giving was done and all that, and he approached me and said, I want to talk to you in person. So he took me to a room. I said, well, I know you're not happy because you've lost in the playoff. But let me tell you that this is going to be great for you. You won't understand it now, but it's going to be better for you that you didn't beat me today.
Right. A bit like him with Johnny Miller.
Correct.
Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly that. So I didn't understood at the time. I thought, what the hell are you talking about?
Losing.
No. I just lost. How is it going to be great for me?
Yeah.
So, but as years went by, I understood what he meant. I mean, it would have put so much pressure on me every time I tee the ball up in a tournament that it would have been not a good thing for me.
I'm interested. I mean, in my mind, you've just described one, but I don't remember too many times the two of you going at it head to head down the stretch.
No,
very often, did it?
No, it didn't happen very often. I remember we played a playoff in Berlin, the German Open. Seve, Ernie Els, and myself, 18, playing a playoff, the three of us.
Yeah.
And it was par 4, tough par 4, water on the right by the edge of the green. The flag was all the way back. And I have to say that he hit a fantastic bloody 4-iron, about 5 feet from the hole, and birdied the hole and beat the two of us.
Yeah. He was a hard man to beat.
Yeah, he was. He was.
The story goes, I mean, this is something I've heard a million times, and I've never heard your version of it, that Tiger going to play the first 9 holes at Augusta with you and Seve.
Yes.
And just kind of watching the short game stuff. Yeah. And then he goes off to the range to practice what he'd seen. I mean,
he kept on.
Describe that day if you
can. It was. Well, Seve said to me, Tiger wants to play with us. And I said, yes. So we're going to play 9 holes with Tiger. I said, okay, perfect, fantastic. And we played the 9 holes. And from tee to green, normal stuff. But obviously, we spend a lot of time chipping around the greens, bunker shots, all different types of chips, bump and runs with the sandwich, with the 9-iron, and so on. And Tiger kept on watching.
Because he couldn't do the stuff you were doing.
He kept on watching us, all the time. And he kept on asking questions and this and that. And it's true, that is true, yes. Yeah. He picked, as much as he could to improve his short game.
Yeah. Is there a bigger compliment than that, do you think?
Well, not really. I mean, I think that was fantastic. I mean, from my point of view, obviously, he was ready to learn or trying to learn to improve his game. And, if a player like Tiger does that means that,
you're doing something right.
We're doing correct. We're doing something right.
Yeah. I mean, if you could if Seve if it was 10 out of 10, where were you short game?
Short game?
Yeah.
8. Really?
Yeah. I would go 9.5.
Well, 8. I mean, he he had a special hands, I have to say. I saw him hit shots that I couldn't. Period. As simple as that. I've been a good bunker player, but funny enough, there's an incident. We are playing the PGA in the States, and we went to the practice area. And we're chipping around the green, and he goes to hit a few bunker shots. And after 15 minutes or so, he came to us and says, Jose, could you have a look at it? Sure. But, well, yeah. What you want me to say? Okay, well, just watch. He hit a few bunker shots, and, let's say out of 6 shots, he left all 6 within 3-4 feet from the hole, and the other 2 almost went in.
Yeah.
And I said, well, Seve, what's wrong? Those, beautiful. 6 up and downs out of 6. Yeah, but you see, when I hit the ball, when that ball hits the green, the ball spins to the right. I said, well, it's supposed to do so. If you're hitting a bunker shot, you're going to cut it. No, if I do it properly, that ball should spin straight. Well, then, Seve, I cannot help you at all. So, okay. I went, to my chipping, and after 20 minutes or so, he says, come back, have a look at it now. So I went there, and he was, spot on. That ball spun straight all the time, and that's why he was so good. I didn't have that shot. I couldn't have that shot. My shot always spun a little bit from left to right. And
did he ever explain how he did it?
Well, he explained to me, but I tried. But I never reached that level.
Yeah.
No.
I was his ghostwriter on instruction stories for a while when he was attached to Golf Digest. And we were doing a short game thing. It was in Florida somewhere. And it was from here to that door, which is maybe, 6, 7, 8 yards, something like that, if that. And he hit, before we even started, he hit a little chip shot, and it skipped once, and it came back a few inches from this distance. And I went, oh, man, how did you do that? And he just smiled, and he did it again and again. It was unbelievable. He could do things that, I couldn't conceive of being able to do.
Yeah, that's why I said,
genius.
Yeah, he was special around the greens. His hands were unique. I remember another incident. We're actually playing the tournament. El Saler, the 4th, par 3, into the wind. He pulls the tee shot. Left of the bunker, and the flag is just 3 yards from the edge of the green, just next to the bunker. So, and the rough, it was severe. So we went there and we started to look for the ball, and I found the ball. I said, Seve, it's here. And I saw how the ball was.
Yeah.
So he had a branch of a pine tree, so he couldn't flop the shot. He couldn't hit it up in the air. And obviously he had only 3 yards of green to stop the ball. And, I look at it and said, there is no chance.
Yeah.
So I went to the green, and I'm talking to my caddy, and I said, listen, Seve is one of the best, maybe the best around the greens. But I tell you what, if he hits this shot within 6 feet from the hole, I take my hat off to him. So he goes there, starts looking at the branch and this and that, takes the sandwich, and he hits, just a little swing, soft. The ball came just underneath the branch. Ball pitched just over the bunker, lands soft. The ball starts to roll, touches the hole about 3 inches from the hole. So I said, that's it. Yeah, he was special.
Yeah. The pair of you, famously an absolute nightmare to play against in the Ryder Cup. You know what it's like in match play. The last thing you want to be playing against is the guy that's getting up and down from everywhere. And there's 2 of you doing it. You must have had a wee smile to yourselves at some of the things you were doing.
Well, we've won matches that us and the US team players, we were all scratching our heads.
Yeah.
Because we were all over the park.
Yeah, you had no business winning. Yeah,
we were all over the park. Off the tee, we were left, right, Actually, sometimes we said, okay, I'll see you by the green. Okay, remember, just keep on fighting, this and that. So it's true that, we were difficult to beat because of that. I mean, we never give anything away. We never gave up. Seve in that regard was amazing. He would give 100% every time. Even though we were not hitting the ball well, he always told me, it doesn't matter, let's make par. Let's force them to make a birdie to win the hole and see what happens.
Yeah.
When we were down, let's try to stay maybe 1-2 down. I mean, if we're 2 down, we still have a chance, All we need to do is just win one hole.
They make a mistake.
And all of a sudden, the pressure is on them. So it was amazing. And it's true that the short game saved us a lot of times. Yeah, a lot of times. And his imagination. I mean, he hit shots from the trees and, that...
I watched him at the one you missed, Oak Hill.
Yeah.
In 95. I don't know if you were watching.
I watch it.
The first 9 holes of that match against Tom Lehman, I've never seen anything like that before in my life or since.
Yeah, and I think the biggest credit to him was the article that Tom Lehman wrote afterwards, saying that he learned more in those 9-10 holes than he did in I don't know how many years.
Yeah, I mean, there's a great story Bernard Gallagher tells about how he wandered up to Seve. They're coming up the 10th hole, and Bernard appears, and Seve's all smiles, and Bernard says, Seve, why are you smiling? You're 1 down. Because I should be 10 down.
True.
I mean, it was, as I say, I've never seen anything like it. I don't think anyone will ever see it. Not at that level.
I don't think so.
I mean, it was a great sadness to me how his game deteriorated. I don't know how you felt. I mean, obviously you would feel the same, but it was very difficult to watch.
It was hard to watch. Remember, we were playing, it was in Germany again. We were paired together. And it got to a point, I think it was the 11th or 12th hole. It got to a point where when he was standing on the tee, I couldn't watch.
Yeah.
I couldn't watch because I knew the ball was going to go way wide. Mm-hmm. I mean, it was hard to watch. But, after all the things that evolve after a few years.
You have to think the brain tumor had something to do with it.
Correct. Yeah. I want to believe that by then the problem was there, even though nobody knew about it. He always complained to me about having, headaches, after a round, mm-hmm. He blamed it on how much he concentrated during the round and how much he had to fight to save the round and all that. But, when I look back at it, maybe it was already there.
Yeah. I remember one of the great regrets of my life was I never got to play with him. I went to Petrania with a photographer to do the instruction stuff. We were there for a few days, and the morning after, or the day we were going to leave, we had time in the morning to play, and he was going to play with us. But it was blowing an absolute gale, and he decided to go and practice. And is it the 16th hole? There's the par 3 with a big bank round the green near the end?
15.
So we get to the tee on the 15th and we look up and there he is. He's practicing because it's sheltered. And he steps back to watch us, hit up. And I've never felt so much pressure because the last thing I wanted to do was have Seve watch me chip. So thank God I hit the green. I could putt before I went chip it. No. So you can imagine. But he was a hard guy to get to know, especially from the media side. But once he kind of knew who you were and he kind of trusted you.
Somehow he created a shell or a wall. Privacy for him was crucial.
Yeah. Well, you're a bit like that too.
Yes. But the demand on him was huge. Yeah. And he always wanted to have, time for himself. And that's why he was sometimes tough on media and people in general. But once you were in close courts, if the group of people, was like 3 or 4 and it's a private dinner or whatever, he was very relaxed and he was really open, very much down to earth. a humble guy, humble beginnings, and he enjoyed the company, the conversations, the stories.
Yeah.
It was like two different Seves.
Yeah. I mean, I've told this story before on here, so I can tell it again because I've seen the Seve movie, which I'm sure you have as well, and the fact that he liked the company of the ladies. It was mentioned more than once, and I remember once I was sitting in a restaurant. People have listened to these podcasts, I've heard this before, but I look up and there's Seve coming in with a woman, not his wife, and he sees me and he comes over and he says to me, "I'm not here." Fine, I got the message, but I got a good interview out of it afterwards because he knew that he owed me one, sort of thing. But yeah, he was a rogue in many ways, but he was a good-natured one.
So, correct.
Yeah, you must miss him as well.
I miss him a lot. Yes, I think he left us too soon. I believe that if he didn't have that illness, he would have been.
Yeah, I mean, 54 was
correct.
Age, yeah.
He would have been enjoying golf and enjoying the goodbyes properly.
I remember the Champions Challenge that they've just had at St Andrews here. We were talking just before the Open in 2010. He was very ill, but if he'd come, can you imagine the reception he would have got? Whether he played or not, just to stand on the tee would have been
amazing. But I miss him a lot, and as I said, I mean, he left us too soon, and I feel sorry for him to be honest, in the sense that the last few years were really tough. They were. It was heartbreaking to see the progress.
Yeah, it's a slow thing.
Correct.
My best friend died of the same thing, and you've got to sit and watch, and they know they're dying, but there's nothing they can do about it.
Yeah, I remember watching the Open Championship at his home when Tambury, when Tom Watson almost won, and it was just short after surgery, and he was exercising. All day long, and he kept on telling me, "I have to get stronger. I have to, get in shape I want to play again."
Yeah.
So, but unfortunately, obviously, we know how it ended up.
Yeah. I'm not sure how religious a man you are. That's your own business, but there's very difficult other ways to explain Medinah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's almost mystical, isn't it?
Yes, it is. I mean, it's very hard to explain that. I mean, how many times a thing like that has happened, and especially on how everything evolved on that Sunday. We were 4 points behind, but all of a sudden, we started to make putts from everywhere, chips from everywhere. I mean, there was no explanation to it.
Everything that had to happen.
It did.
Yeah.
Correct. And, as you said, I'm not a very religious man, I have to say, but, in moments like that, you have to think that the presence,
absolutely,
was there. I knew that. I mean, when you see the reaction of some of the players, for instance, Justin Rose, when he pointed at the sleeve with Seve's silhouette in there, it makes you think. And, it might be silly, but I want to believe that in a way he was there.
Yeah, I mean, there's no other explanation. It certainly made no sense. And I mean, you were not just 10-6 then, you were 10-4 down.
Correct.
Till Poulter, did his thing.
Correct.
I mean, that's still...
Yeah, it could have been over on Saturday, virtually.
Oh, well, it was. I mean, if Poulter hadn't done that, it was over. I mean,
correct.
10-6 is just about the limit.
Yeah, limit, correct. I totally agree, yes.
Yeah. What did you say to them all on Saturday night?
Well, I mean, I didn't have to say much, to be honest. I think the atmosphere shifted that Saturday afternoon with those last two matches. Even though we were losing by 4, in that meeting, you could look at the eyes of every single player in that room, and there was a spark.
I've had guys in that team say to me that they felt better. They were further behind on Saturday night than they were on Friday night, but they felt they could win somehow. I mean, bizarrely.
Correct. The belief was there. they believed. They all of a sudden they thought, hey, if we've done that today, late in the afternoon, I mean, we can still do something about this tomorrow.
Yeah.
And we had a normal conversation, and at the end, I told them to play freely with no fear, to go for every shot, regardless of the outcome, and to fight for every shot, for every hole. And we recall what happened in '99 at Boston.
I'm going to get to that in a minute.
And we said, it was 4 points then. It's true that we were playing away, but it is doable.
Yeah. What was your kind of philosophy on captaincy and pairings and things? I mean, there's different ways of looking at foursomes and four balls and order of singles, and what was your?
For foursomes, my philosophy is that you need solid players, consistent players. I mean, not so much a guy that makes a lot of birdies. That's fantastic for four balls.
Yeah.
But for foursomes, you need solid players, players that they're going to hit fairways and greens, because at the end of the day, foursomes, I think, is the toughest format in golf.
Yes,
no questions about that.
Yeah.
It's very hard to get the rhythm.
Especially if you're the guy not playing as well as the other guy.
So that's the philosophy behind pairings and all that. And then individual matches, everything is dictated on how the situation is.
Well, the singles was always made easy for you.
Yeah, correct. I mean, I had no...
You just had to go for it.
Correct. That's it. We had to go for it. We had to put all the players that were playing good up front, trying to gain as much points as soon as possible. And then maybe, have a couple of guys at the end where, you can rely on. It was, in that regard, my decision was quite easy.
How do you look at the Ryder Cup, when you're from the outside? I mean, there are aspects of it that I don't like. I think it's wonderful, when it's close, especially. But there's been things happened, and you were at the centre of the most controversial one. It's taken, it's only a game of golf, at the end of the day, but it's become something that it maybe shouldn't. I don't know. How do you feel about it?
No, well, it's a game at the end of the day, but I mean, there is a lot of...
You like to win, I know.
A lot of emotions and a lot of things that go with that tournament. There's a lot of pressure.
Is that the most pressure, even more than majors?
It's different pressure, but there is a lot of it.
Yeah, well, I can see that. Yeah,
a lot of it. I can tell you that when you stand on that first tee, your hands are shaking.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's even hard to tee the ball up. There's a lot of pressure. You're not playing for yourself. You're playing for your teammates, for your family, for your friends, for the tour, for a continent or a country. There is so many things, and what makes it so special is the atmosphere. There is no any other tournament in the world where you have 30,000, 50,000 people watching, cheering for the same group.
Don't get me wrong. The upside of it is fantastic. I mean, there's things have happened that just make me think.
Well, but we're all humans. We have feelings, and sometimes we do things that we regret afterwards.
But Brookline '99, I have to say, you handled that in a way that I would have been struggling to do. You were incredibly.
I didn't have many options.
No, well,
I was not going to start.
No,
hitting people.
It could have got ugly. Yes, exactly. But I interviewed Ben Crenshaw years after it, and I said to him, did you ever think about walking on the green and picking your ball up? Because of what happened, and he kind of thought about it, and he said that would have been a good thing to do.
That would have been a fantastic thing to do.
Yeah,
I agree, but again, at that time, you have to remember that the media slashed the US team.
I was part of that. Yeah,
Ben,
I'll tell you my Tom Lehman story in a minute.
Ben and all the players. I mean, on paper, by far, they were a much stronger team.
Yeah,
by far. And all of a sudden, after 2 days of competition, they were 4 points behind. So, I mean, the media was so hard on them.
Yeah, or the American media.
The American media. Talking about American media, the local.
Well, I thought you were talking about I gave the crowd
no,
incredible. I mean, I thought it was really ugly.
I'm talking about the local media. I mean, they were crucifying, every player in that team, Ben as captain. Absolutely. I mean, and everything. All of a sudden, having the tournament pretty much lost and having to listen to all the comments and all that, all of a sudden you have a window, a moment where you are envisioning a possible victory.
Yeah.
And when that happens, obviously, you just let it go. Yeah. And I understand the reaction.
Yeah.
I have to say that at the time, it hurt. But as time went by, I understood what happened. I mean, most probably, as Europeans, we would have done the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say, I wrote a column that night for American magazine Golf World, which is no longer with us. But and I kind of singled out Tom Lehman. He was the kind of first guy on the green. And 2 weeks later, at the Dunhill Cup at St Andrews, he was there, and I'm walking along the back of the range, and he calls me over. I want to talk to you. So he takes me out in the middle of the range and he starts giving me the finger in the chest. He says, "How dare you?" He says, "How dare you sum up my whole character on the basis of one incident?" To which I responded, I says, "Well, how dare you sum up my opinion of you on the basis of one column?" I said, "I've written a number of positive things about you before this, Tom, and you've never come to thank me. I don't think this is very fair." To which he gave a 2-word answer, you can imagine, and stormed off. We've since made up, I hasten to add, and we've come to
okay.
terms.
All right, good.
It's all good with Tom. Right. In fact, more than that. But at the time, he wasn't happy with me, I can tell you. But that's the kind of emotions that it provoked.
Yes, I mean that's the Ryder Cup. The emotions are so high.
I mean, and I have to say that I followed Monty for 9 holes, the first 9 holes of his single, and it was disgraceful. What would the crowd? The crowds. That was
especially with Monty that week. They were awful. Awful.
Yeah, and he was your best player at the time.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
So. But everybody was having a shot at him, and it was awful. It was awful.
Yeah, I have to say, just my last Ryder Cup thing. I always admired the fact that you stepped up when Nick Faldo was captain and stepped into the breach, if you like, and kind of filled the hole as assistant. I mean, what was your motivation there, and what was that like?
Well,
because he was slaughtered.
Yes, he was slaughtered. Yes, that is true. But when he first came to me and approached me and asked me about the possibility of being a vice captain, well, I did it. I did it because it's the Ryder Cup. I think is as I said, is a very unique event, very special in my heart. Wonderful memories, and I did it because of that. But it was a tough week. But that's the only reason I did it. I think, being the Ryder Cup, being an European player.
There's an obligation there.
Correct. In a way, yes.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you, well, moving off the Ryder Cup finally, your health, famously, you missed, almost 2 years of golf. Obviously, I mean, I can only imagine what that must have been like. I mean, we were all, trying to get hold of you and find out what was going on and all the rest of it. But you kept it, pretty much under wraps for a long time, the problems you were having and the extent of the problems. Yeah. You must have been fearful for not only your career, but your quality of life at one point.
Yes, it was tough times, I have to say, very difficult times. You start thinking about the future, what type of life you're going to have.
You couldn't walk.
Forget about quitting. Forget about playing golf. It was just the quality of life. I couldn't walk at all. And when you spend a year, almost 2 years, laying down on a couch or because you cannot walk, you cannot go even, to the toilet. You have to crawl. It's so painful. There were difficult times, where anxiety kicked in, couldn't sleep. Was it worth it? to keep on living? Well, I mean, I couldn't do much, period, at that time,
Does it, I mean, it's an old cliche, does it make you stronger, that kind of thing? Did it change you as a person?
Well, I don't know if it makes you stronger, but it makes you appreciate what you have in life. No questions about that.
Yeah.
I remember when I first started walking again and hitting a few balls and hitting a few shots. As you can imagine, the ball was going all over the park.
Yes.
But I still had a smile in my face. I woke up in the mornings and, I stood on my feet and all of a sudden, it's no pain. So I opened the window, you look at the skies, blue skies, gray skies. Yeah. It didn't matter. It was a lovely day.
Were you a good patient? What would your mother say?
I think I was. Yeah, I think I was. Yeah. It's very, very important, the support of your close ones. That could be parents, wives or whatever. But
because they would see you in a state that nobody else.
It was tough for everybody.
Of course.
It was tough for everybody. I mean, watching my parents look at me when I couldn't walk, trying to help me. It was tough. I don't wish that to anybody.
No. You've always been, openly emotional, shall we say?
Yes,
good and bad.
True.
That must mean after all that Masters victory, the second one must.
It was. I've always say this and tell this to friends and to everybody that asks me about it. I really enjoyed the second Masters immensely.
Yeah.
Much more than the first one. The first one was more a sense of relief. I had no issues whatsoever. I was, I practiced hard, worked hard. You believe that, you're going to have a chance maybe sooner or later of winning a major event. I had a chance in 91 when Woozy won.
Yeah.
But, even though I didn't win the tournament, I was happy because I said to myself, well, at least I proved to myself that I gave myself a chance of winning a major event.
Yeah.
So when that thing happened in 94, I remember knocking the last putt in, grabbing the ball and closing the eyes and thinking to myself, I did it. But it was a sense of relief. In 99, it was just the opposite. I really enjoyed it, every bit of it. Every walk, I was more aware of the crowds, the lights, the colors of the flowers.
You made sure to take it all in, sort of thing.
Yes, correct. Yeah. Correct. In 94, I was so focused on what I had to do, I blanked everything else. And in 99, it was just the opposite. I enjoyed, as I said, that last day. I really enjoyed it. Every bit.
One of the great players as well
to
win it.
Yeah.
It wasn't as if you were, you ran off with it.
No. No, it was tight. Yeah.
Why do you think, for a period there, that the Europeans did so well at Augusta in particular? Is it just because you were the best players, but there's got to be more to it than that because you didn't dominate in the other majors quite the same way?
No, mainly because of the type of golf course. If you compare Augusta National with the U.S. Open, for instance, the PGA, the heat in those days. I
can imagine those two were really right up your alley. That's,
and they're completely different golf courses. You have to, obviously, if you're a good player, you have to adapt to those elements. At least you have to try. But Augusta had open fairways. Even in those days, even if you missed the fairways, if you went to the pine needles, you could still find a gap, where you could find a way to hit the ball onto the green. And of course, short game. That was crucial. I think Augusta National has changed through the years since they started lengthening the golf course and tightening
it's a different game there now.
Now it's a premium on driving.
Yeah.
as it is on short game, but now you need to have the whole package.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're not going to win over there. Yeah. You need to be good off the tee, and you need to have a good short game. But in those days, I think Augusta adapted very well to us Europeans.
Do you like the way the game has gone? You brought up the distance thing there. I mean, I bang on about this endlessly because I think that something needs to be done about it. I don't like the way it's become, a bit more one-dimensional. Guys like yourself and Seve wouldn't prosper quite the same way playing this game. You do well, but you wouldn't. But you would struggle in certain aspects of it.
But at the same time, I mean, that is evolution. I'm pretty sure.
But we're going to run out of room at some point.
Sure. I'm pretty sure that they will get to a point where they will limit that. But I think we're pretty much over there already. I don't think we can.
You think it's too late?
I don't think we can. Technology can go even farther, but with the limitations that we have at the moment, I don't think we will see more distance gain in the near future. That will depend on how strong and the players are.
They're getting bigger.
Correct. Yeah. They're getting bigger. There is no questions about that. But at the same time, when in the mid-80s, when I started playing professional, if you look back, 20 or 30 years before that, there was an evolution in that regard. So that's what happened. Nowadays, obviously, as you say, we might run out of space, but I'm pretty sure that sooner or later we will get a right balance.
Hopefully,
you still need to chip and putt well.
Well, that's right. Yeah, no, I'm not sure I share quite your optimism, but yeah, I'm glad to hear that you think that. So, just to finish up, we inevitably have to talk about what's going on in the world of golf at the moment. What's your feeling on what you're looking at it slightly from a distance? You're on the senior tour now, which is a little bit detached.
Yeah. Well, I think we're going to live tough times in the next year and a half, 2 years, until everything is clear and settled. How is settled, that will define the future of all three tours, PGA, LIV, and DP Tour. So until then, we might see one thing one day, we might see another thing another day. But
what would you like to see? If I put you in charge, you're Mr. Golf, what would you do?
What would I do? Good question. Whatever is beneficial for the game of golf. I don't know if I'm clever.
I'm with you. I don't see anybody doing that right now.
Correct. Yeah. I think at the end of the day, we have to protect and save the game of golf. And that's, from my point of view, that's the most important part. How do you get there? I don't have a crystal ball.
They've got to start talking.
But sooner or later, you will have to sit down, talk, and see if they can find a way where everybody gains, and most importantly, the game of golf. Because at the end of the day, what I love about the game of golf is, first of all, obviously, what gives to us, no questions about that, but what it gives also to society. I mean, I'm really impressed when you go to the States and you see, all the money raised for charities and helping kids in need, studies, illnesses, hospitals, things like that, how golf benefits communities. And I think, that's one of the most important parts that this wonderful game has been able to provide to society. And at the end of the day, I think that's what we have to look for.
My hope is that we'll end up with something better at the end of it.
Well, if that is the case, fantastic. Mm-hmm. It would be a shame to see clashes between, different tours, the Live Tour players, it can get ugly.
There's going to have to be some compromise, though, if they're going to come together. I mean, you and I talked about this earlier, that there's going to be people unhappy that didn't go and earn the $4 million or whatever they've earned in the last 2-3 weeks, and suddenly if they're allowed back in, guys are going to go, well, if I'd known that, I would have gone too.
Correct.
There's going to be...
It's true. I mean, I don't think you're going to have everybody happy. That's for sure.
No.
But at the end of the day, I think whatever is best for golf, if they can achieve that, that will be great. Because otherwise, I don't think we're going to like what we're going to see.
My last question was, you're famously hailed as the one professional golfer who wasn't driven by money to quite the same extent.
Wow.
How much truth is in that, or have you secreted this away in a bank account in Switzerland somewhere?
No. Well, at the end of the day, I have to say that I did well. I've earned a good living. I didn't have the need of cashing in, and as I said before, I play the game of golf for the challenge and trying to prove myself that I was good enough to compete against the best. That's what drives me my whole life, my whole career. Try to put myself in those situations and to know how successful I was. Money is important, don't get me wrong. We all know that. Yeah. But it was not the thing that drove me through my career. It's true, as I said, that I earned a good living and I didn't have that urge or that need in that regard.
Yeah. The very last question is, you must have been able to do some nice things for your family, though, that they wouldn't have been able to do normally. Any examples of that?
Well, obviously, I told my parents that they didn't need to keep on working. They work their lives really hard from the very beginning, and I convinced them to stop working. I helped my sister. I have a nephew and a niece. I helped them pay their studies and things like that. Well, so I, in that regard, you need money up to a certain degree, depending on what type of life you live.
What age were your parents when they stopped working?
That was quite a while ago. My mom must have been 20 years ago, 25 years ago. Yeah, something like that.
That must have been a great feeling.
Yes, I mean,
for you,
for me, it was fantastic.
And for them as well, obviously.
Because, I knew how hard they worked. We were very, very humble. They really needed to work really extra hours, and to have, we didn't struggle, but we didn't have the chance to, go holidays or go for dinner away and things like that. So I saw them working really, really hard for many, many years, and that made the day I convinced them to stop working. It was one of the happiest days of my life.
It's not easy because they'd be used to it.
Yes, I know.
And they'd be thinking, what am I going to do with myself?
But funny enough, my father was the hardest to convince. But after 5 or 6 years, he said...
he came round to your way of thinking.
Thank you very much. I should have done it before.
Yeah. That's good. On that note, Jose, thank you for your time. It's been a pleasure talking to you, and thanks for your appearance on The Thing About Golf.
Thank you very much, John.
Okay.
What a player, what a legacy, and what an interview there from John Huggan with one of the best of his generation. If you look up class in the dictionary, you just might find a picture of Jose Maria Olazabal. Now, speaking of our man in Europe, I hope you're enjoying Huggy's dulcet tones, because he's been what can only be described as on fire this past couple of weeks. Huggy's rounded up a couple of interviews which are quite timely given goings on in the world of golf, and that means that we'll be hearing from him back to back when he catches up with one of the game's most interesting players on our next.
And this is something that is a feature of Live Golf. You've got a quite a significant minority really, who have come from a very small, two management companies. I mean, I think there's an element of groupthink going on here, and ironically, the criticisms are all the same, whether it's of Keith Pelly or the Tours. And I think, well, how original are those thoughts? You're all saying the same thing. I don't know why you're saying those things, especially as it relates to a couple, because a couple of the players have benefited enormously in different ways from the Tours, whether it be through the pandemic or over the years. And I don't respect that opinion. I don't respect their opinions of Keith or the Tour.
That's Eddie Pepperell talking all things golf and live golf next time on The Thing About Golf.